Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the WE Knives Array. So first off, I want to thank my buddy Zell for mailing this little guy along. I appreciate it very much, Zell. I wouldn't have gotten a chance otherwise, so thanks. Next thing, size comparison. This is actually a reasonably large knife. Although it looks relatively small and slim, in practice, it's a big one. Here it is against the ZT452CF. Here it is against your Spyderco Delica, because, well, of course. Against your Ontario Rat number 1, and your Ontario Rat number 2, right over here. Let's see here. One of the relevant size comparison, which I have to fetch out of my drawer here, is actually the Booz Blade Smoke, which is another knife that's made by WE Knives, but is very different in a couple of meaningful ways. So, anyways, let's go on ahead and jump into the review. One thing, though, this is going to be a quick review, and I'm finding myself doing this more often, and I think I like it. When there is a huge show-stopping flaw with a knife, spoiler alert, I'm not going to bother with the full review, the full disassembly, all of that. The thing is, I've got too many great knives on my table to throw good time after bad. And so when a knife has a fatal flaw, not just like, well, I don't care for it particularly, but like, there's something that's just like, I'm sorry, how was the play, Ms. Lincoln, that kind of thing. Then I'm, no. And so I'm just going to focus on the good, the bad, and then move on to another knife. So anyways, let's talk about what's good about this knife and what's pretty damned ugly, and then we'll go into our final conclusion and move on. First off, on the good side, I got to say, I do love the idea of, on this dimension, the slimness of this knife. This is a nice little size, because it makes the knife a lot easier to carry. It just drapes in the pocket. It just disappears, basically, in the pocket. And that's something that's great. That's something I appreciate very much. And, unfortunately, well, it's not often found. Very often knives tend to be very wide when pockets don't tend to be. So anyways, I appreciate that very much when it does happen. Next thing, I am absolutely a big fan of these lines on the blade here, on the handle that is. They've done a lot of nice little design touches here, and this is just nice. It goes from one contour to another. Some of the contouring and the texturing on the whole in this knife is actually something I'm a fan of. Get some jimping in the back here, jimping all around. It makes this knife profoundly not slippery in the hand, which is good. This is absolutely not going anywhere in your hand, and so that's very nice. And the fact that they've even brought the jimping all the way up to the top here means that even using the finger choil, you're good to go there. I do love this flat ground tip on this. I mean, what you can see here is that the edge bevel just balloons out to the full thickness here, and that's kind of neat. It's not something you see very often, and it's not going to be super easy to maintain on, a guided system or something like that, or at least it'll be super time consuming, but it is something that WE has done that I've really not seen out of other production knife makers, and so that's cool. 100%. Next thing, the clip on this guy is solid. It works well. It's got plenty of height. No complaints there. It has Torx screws. You can see here each one of these screws is Torx, and that is a beautiful thing, and as such it bothers me that I have to say negative things about the knife. But the Torx is, that's great. I love Torx, and I love seeing WE caring about their users and moving to a real screw standard more and more and more. So that's good. I do love the lines of this knife. On the table, this is a very attractive knife, pardon me. There's a lot to love about this little guy. And then finally, I love the action. This has a great action. 100% detent is just perfect. You cannot not deploy this knife. It fires reliably, beautifully, powerfully, just every flea that you can think of, it's doing it. And so the action on this knife is absolutely great. And with this big, heavy blade, it does, I'll show you here, fall shut-ish. Shake it a little bit, but still, the action on it is great. And so to me, all of that is the good. It's got a great action. It's got Torx screws, which is great. A lot of great use of texturing, nice lines, details like that, a nice clip. The flat ground tip is nice. Oh, did I mention the finger choil? I like the finger choil. And it does have a very nice, this slim kind of feeling in the pocket can be very, very compelling. Unfortunately, though, this knife is defined more by its bad than anything. So on the bad side, first off, the price is okay. It's $250. That's fine. It's not great value, though. It used to be the case that I looked at a WE knife and thought, wow, they're selling me that for that price? That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It really feels like WE has given up on value and are just trying to be another high-end knife-making company. And I'm not sure that's the best way for them to use their brand. And, well, anyways, I digress. Next thing, this is something I've knife-griped about in the past with Knife News, and that is the texture under the flipper tab here. Anytime you deploy this knife, your finger will slide back onto this texturing, and that's just not okay. It hurts the finger. It's not a great thing. Yeah, okay. Oh, wimpy little fingers, whatever. You can do better than that. So that's ugly. Next thing, this is a weird little subtle thing, but it does actually bother me. The finger choil here, if we look at a finger choil on a knife like, for instance, steel wheel cut jack here, and a nice wide choil here, a nice grip here. And when I grab onto this, there's relatively little gap between my fingers because the flipper tab is relatively thin and these two holes are close to each other. And so this feels really nice in my hand. It feels pretty natural. Yeah, my index finger is a little bit forward where it might be naturally, but not by much. As opposed to on this guy, there is a really big gap here between the finger choil and the rest of the knife here. And so as a result, this feels a little awkward in my hand. My index finger's just kind of up in the middle there. It's like, it's just weird. And so as a result, this just isn't as comfortable to cut with using the finger choil as I'd have liked. And I actually found myself wanting to use this guy instead in this kind of a grip. That just felt better to me. So there you go. And then finally, oh, I'm sorry, not quite finally. This has an unnecessary fuller. I can live with that. But then finally, there are two big showstoppers that are very closely related. To start with, this blade is stupidly thick. Seriously, let's take a look. I mean, this is the Spyderco Delica. This is a very sane blade stock thickness. This is way, way thicker. But look, on the Delica, in order to get to this full thickness, it uses, you know, damn near an inch, if not an inch, I should measure. But anyways, it uses a whole bunch of freaking space in order to get the full thickness, whereas this guy gets the full thickness that quickly. Look at this Ontario Rat number 1 here in D2 steel. Again, it's a thick blade. This is a thicker blade than this, but again, it's coming up to a much, much wider bevel very, very quickly. Even compared to the Spyderco PM2, which has a very, very thick blade, this is thicker. And yet again, come on, guys. And so as a result, you end up with a knife that is just way too damn thick. This is a slim knife. You should not be using this blade stock. And at least on other knives that have used thicker stock, like the Booz Blade Smoke, this is full flat ground. So you get out the full thickness only at the very edge. And he's also done a lot of distal kind of tapering stuff, so that it's not at full thickness really anywhere but the ricasso. That's a better way to do this. But having a very, very thick blade stock is strike one. Having this very, short grind is strike number 2. And unfortunately, strike 3 comes when you close the knife. As you can see here, because this is a very slim design, and they've been a little greedy with how much blade they try to get in this handle, the tip of the blade is right freaking there, which means I can very easily, if I just set my index finger down on here, I am touching blade as much as I am touching these two things. I have smaller fingers than most. It might not be a problem if you've got, if you're freaking, the guy from Hellboy with the big stone hand or something, but for me, it absolutely is. And as I've got this in my pocket, it is very, very easy for me to touch the blade with my pinky finger on here, which means that if I slide my hand past this in my pocket, this is just asking for a laceration, and that is just not okay. And that is a huge consequence when people use these stupidly thick blades, because this same spacing here, this same depth beneath wouldn't have been a problem if the blade stock were a lot thinner. Here, let me find a knife that's got thinner stock. In this case, this has thinner stock, so it's much harder to get your finger at any depth here. But when you use stupid thick stock and you get greedy with the amount of blade space you can put in there, you end up with a knife that becomes dangerous. This knife feels dangerous to the fingers, and it would make me want to leave this knife dull. I mean, no, I would not carry this. That is a we are done here sort of flaw. You have one job, to make the knife safe when it is closed, and they've not done that here. It wouldn't be a problem with a thinner blade, but because they did that confluence of bad decisions, here we are. It's a special kind of ugly and unforgivable sin of knife making, and honestly, with those two issues, the stupid thick blade stock that just doesn't cut well, even in, like, freaking cardboard, and then the fact that it'll cut you when closed, the knife is just kind of over. And I'm moving to a quick review. So, on final conclusions here, this is a great idea for a knife. It's nice, it's slim, long blade, great choil, and it is a looker for sure. Look at this guy on Instagram. It was like, wow, that's pretty. I absolutely, because from this dimension, you only see the two reasonable dimensions. This is a gem on 2-3 dimensions. If this were made with a proper blade thickness, this could absolutely be an incredible piece. I would absolutely love it. But that third dimension here just kills the knife, because it's too damn thick in the blade to cut well, and it's not safe because it's so damn thick in the blade. And so I went from being super excited to get this guy, but then the moment I got it in the hand, it was just like, oh, why Why did you do that? It was a big disappointment. And unfortunately, it's a huge, obvious, glaring design flaw, at least to my mind. I mean, and this is something I'm noticing regularly from Wii's, that they're dropping a lot of models. There is like a new Wii knife every week. And I found myself wondering if they're putting that much thought into any one of them. I mean, this and the Balanoptera that I did another quick review on, because it was fatally flawed too. Two knives in the last few months that have had obvious and fatal flaws as functional tools. They also dropped the Zephyr, which was great, so it's not like they're just putting out crap, but this feels like a release model. Just drop a ton of knives, the market will sort out what's good and bad, we don't have to think too hard about it. And that's not good, because Wii is a company that relies 100% on, like, mail order. It's not like you can go down to your local knife store, even if you have a local knife store, and pick up a Wii knife. There are very few of those retailers, and so if I can't trust that a new model is going to be good on 3 dimensions when I see it in an Instagram picture, it's a lot harder to buy sight unseen, and it makes the brand less attractive. So, on the whole, I like the design of this knife. There is a lot to love about the array here, and I really do hope that we see an array skinny someday that uses a blade stock thickness that's reasonable and maybe backs that blade off a little bit there. Because this would be an absolutely stellar knife with a blade that's, you know, half as thick. But as it is, this is an absolutely great array of ideas, but multiplied by the wrong damn width, and as a result, I just can't recommend it. So there you go. Hope this is interesting to you. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.